We're back again for another episode of 40K Fanatics Podcast, the podcast where, well, I mean, everybody does the podcast where. You know what we do here. We try to have fun with our plastic toys, like we did this week. I'm Shane, that's Austin. Let's get right into it. We're talking new mission pack, the chapter approved 2025-2026 mission deck for 40K, which I hold in my hand. I actually have it physically in my hand. So we're going to go over some stuff in that I think is neat. There's some changes. I'm very excited to play it, really. I was telling the people a couple of episodes ago, I had not played a match play game of 40K in quite some time. And then I had to play round one of our local league, and so I played match play. And I had forgot how really stinking good it is. And I think the new version is going to be even better. That was in Pry Nexus. I understand, though, that recently in our local community there was a tournament where they're still using the Leviathan deck. So that's a choice. But before we get to all that, we got to open up the Vox channel where we read your comments from previous podcasts. Due to the way we do our recordings, these will come from episode before last, where we talked about 40K accessories you have to have. I have the sniffles. I can't help it. All right. These are really good. In fact, it's quite a successful pod, and I feel like we need more podcast topics in this lane because nobody got in there and told us that we're stupid heads, which was kind of neat. So, John Martin 6700 says, great stream. Dislike button 8789 says, love the pod. Keep going, boys. Zdrawn07 says, I found the special movement tray turn measurer for Old World. It's a movement tray turn measurer for Old World that is such a lifesaver. Turns wheeling movement into a quick, like 3-second thing. Found it on Etsy.
I need to get some of those.
Yeah, that does sound kind of nice. Let's see. Paradukes, yes to frequent contributor Paradukes. Yes to almost all of these, especially the measuring widgets. I've never used the formation bases before, but I know a few Horde players who swear by them. With regards to the painting handle and army box, don't be afraid to go DIY. I started out with oversized corks that fit comfortably in the hand and just stuck the model on with white tack, poster putty for those in the US. Since I picked up an FDM printer, though, I put together a customized handle with a metal insert and a load of different magnetized heads that can be swapped freely, and as an added bonus, I can stick the heads onto a metal ruler for mass airbrushing. For the Army case, I strongly recommend the Duncan Rhodes tutorial for making the case out of a 4L or 9L really useful box, which I'm not sure what that is, and a ferrous rubber sheet. He might mean 4-liter or 9-liter. And I bet that's a tub, like a plastic tub, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it seems to be.
He says, I do use the hot glue and baking parchment method of getting the magnets flush, since the carry case will usually be slung sideways in my bag while I'm cycling. I need the models to stay in place, and I haven't had any incidents so far. Well, there we go. Paradukes is someone who tips his whole entire case over. As we were saying, that seems like a ridiculous thing, but there we have an example. Now, this one I really liked. By the way, I'm going to read all the comments today because they're all excellent. And if you want to leave a comment on anything, we'll even read comments that we don't agree with that are in opposition of us. We do it very often. Get on the Spotify or in the YouTube and leave them, and we will read them, discuss them, etc. C. Gord Norton says, get yourself to a store that sells climbing gear and buy a chalk bag. It will have a belt attached and also a drawstring for storage. No need to do extra work on another bag. And he says REI if in the USA or MEC if in Canada. I had not ever heard of a chalk bag for climbing, but that sounds like a great way to make a dice bag that hangs
Oh
on
yes,
your
very,
belt.
very, very interesting. I hadn't considered something like that.
Uh, First Legion 123 says the algorithm brought me here. I like this podcast. I'll be back. However, painting handles suck. They're annoying as hell. I glue my models to the base, then hold the base while I paint. My paint jobs are awesome. No fingerprints, to which I responded because I like to respond. Glad to have you. Also, you're an animal, but everybody gotta live how they want. I mean, that guy's crazy.
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
couldn't.
totally.
I mean, you know what? It's all right. I like a psycho anytime, and that guy sounds like one of them. I wonder the other sort of like eccentricities that he possesses, right? Because the hours that you've got to hold that model just by the edge of the base, he cannot.
Hmm.
Like he that person has got a very particular set of autism for
Hmm.
fine tuned for a a set of skills. He's the Liam Neeson and Taken of the miniature gaming world. Dave and Company, this is a comment over on Spotify where you can leave comments. He gives us his own list. We are always recommending when we do our list videos, which are my favorite type to do, a top 3 list with OLIs. He gives no OLIs, but he does give us a top 3. Make your own list, put it in the comments. We want to hear them. My list. I'm going to read it backwards because he did it 1, 2, 3, and everybody knows the list has to go 3, 2, 1. 3. Army transport case. Foam trays, magnet, whatever you like. Don't want to be a gatekeeper, but man, have some pride in your army. Transport properly. I just hate seeing a pile in a box.
Hmm.
2. Dedicated turn and CP dice / counters. Same reason as above, which is a bit of spoiler. So much to keep track of. This helps. And his number 1. Wound counters. With so many things being multi-wounds, these are more necessary than ever. Just make sure your opponent is counting down or up. Got to be clear, otherwise there's confusion. Yeah, I'm a count up guy.
That's crazy.
Well, I don't want to do the math, and so I'll make you do the math so that some middle load goes on you. It's a strategic ploy.
I guess.
All I do is tick up 1 or 2 or 3 or d6 plus 2. Usually there's not much counting takes place when d6 plus 2 happens. It's just I'll pull that guy off there.
Hmm.
But those are the comments. That's all the comments we had on that pod, and I thought that was a really nice bunch of, uh, that was the sort of communal thing that we're looking for, right?
Yeah,
Where people are actually giving some good tips to us and taking some from us. Uh, so we want more of that, and I will probably brainstorm more podcast topics like that. And if you wish to leave a podcast topic, if you have something like that, if you have your own top 3 list, you can put them in the comments or in our Discord. We have a 40K Fanatics Discord, which is totally free to be a part of. Free is a good price. You know how much free costs, right?
totally free.
Totally free. No dollars.
Nothing.
Nothing. Just get in there.
0 cent.
Mix it up. Uh, Post your work in the bits box. The bits box, which we will open now, is the part of the show where we talk about what we've done in the hobby this week. Uh, all the pictures of the things that we work on in the bits box are available over in the bits box section of the Discord, which once again, totally free to be a part of. Go in there and look at what we've done and also post what you've done because we want to see what you've done. There are others that are constantly doing stuff as well. I have been a stinky headed hobby procrastinator, and I have hardly
Oh yeah.
done anything up until yesterday evening,
Oh.
where I
Also.
where I rigged and sailed a couple of boats for Black Seas,
Hmm.
which is the rigging is the little thread that goes all around the edges and things to hold the masts up and stuff. And something I've observed is they actually do serve a purpose. So when you build these Black Seas models and you just have the mass up, they're very bendy, flimsy. It feels scary. But then once you rig them up with all the thread and it's super glued all around, uh, with the backstays tied down, so there's an amount of tension on the whole system. It actually
Hmm.
makes the whole thing more rigid.
Wow.
Yeah, which makes sense because it did in real life. It probably should in the miniaturized version, but uh, that was kind of a neat thing. There's also an
Hmm.
amount of tensioning that I've found where some of your initial ropes, we'll call them, will pull in. And then
Okay.
as you do more of them, you start to get a bit of slack on some of those earlier ones. But then once you go and put uh, the opposing ropes, you can sort of pull it back the other way and get your equilibrium back.
Hmm.
And it boggles the mind how people actually did this on real boats with, you know, 60-foot high masts.
Probably climbing them with like daggers in their mouths, like old pirate movies and all that.
I mean, it's just crazy that people figured this out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if you drop it or mess up, then the whole boat tips over, and all the guys that don't know how to swim drown.
Hmm.
And I'm reading a series of books right now that talk a lot about this stuff, and they would make adjustments on the like big adjustments. You know, change the whole setup of the sails and the masts out there on the water.
Yeah.
So boat rocking and everything, and they've got like a whole tree trunk up in the air on a pulley with guys on it, and it's crazy. Anyway, uh, that's about all I've done in the hobby besides our game, which we'll talk about in a moment. But what have you done in the hobby this week, sir?
Well, I've been blasting it on my social media, sending it to group chats and everything. Of my heel, I have been working on a terrain piece. Just a little generic heel. It's the Warhammer heel that Games Workshop sells. I took it and I spray painted it with brown primer, and then I dry brushed it all over with, I believe, Baneblade Brown, to try to create some highlights. And then after doing that, I then took some Elmer's glue and used uh, it's a new paintbrush, but it's going to definitely be an old paintbrush by the time I'm done with it. I took a paintbrush and painted Elmer's glue across the surface of it where I wanted grass to be. And I took some flocking from Hobby Lobby and just flocked all over it. I flocked that thing until it was just covered in fluffy little flocks to simulate grass. And I am extremely proud of how this is turning out. I can't wait to do the other one. What do you think of it?
I think it looks great. The flock looks incredible. It looks like a chia pet, and I think that's
Yeah.
awesome. You intend to put some grass tufts around too to make like it, where you've got some
Well,
stuff that's not quite so finely mown,
yeah, possibly
mowed.
grass. So what I was really thinking about was taking some larger, kind of like more dark green or a different kind of green flocking and creating like kind of like little fluffy shrubs with it, putting those in some crevices where models probably won't be able to fit, so they won't be able to like really disturb them as well, and kind of like break up a bit of the flat features because it's kind of like a plateau. Kind of have the base of the hill, and then you have these kind of steep inclines going on, and then a flat top. So it's kind of more like a plateau than an actual hill.
Yeah,
So I was looking to try to break up some of that flatness going on with it.
no, I like them. They look good. We I mean, I guess I'll begin to tell the story for my part, but we bum rushed the game store again on a Sunday evening uh, after having some steak and shake, and brought in bespoke terrain and everything to play Old World with. We were the only ones in the building playing Old World, and as our second game of Old World, we were really muddling through, but it had moments of greatness.
Yeah.
Um, it would be cool if we got more people uh, catching the old world itch, which I think some are as they look at our armies, because
Yeah.
you can see the pictures in the bits box. We took pictures and posted them of our battle in the play section of our Discord. Yeah, not in the bits box. It's in the playing section. And the old world armies is just because they're ranked up, they look so imposing and so good, and and that's
You'd
great.
also,
But we need some people. We need a little bit of the hive mind around for what happens when with some rules interactions.
yeah,
But I mean,
that's
until we get that, we're going to continue to, your phrase, bootstrap this game and
hmm
just figure it out. Which I think we played pretty right. It's
yeah,
just a lot of looking stuff up.
yeah. I mean, it's okay to get some stuff wrong as long as we kind of keep like consistency in what we're doing. Like
I
we might get
agree.
something wrong, but as long as like it's nothing like completely egregious, and we both agree that this is how we're going to play in this instance, I don't see anything wrong with that.
No, I don't
Uh,
either.
we're
I
just doing friendly games.
yeah, I also think learning our own armies is going to be huge as we continue to do it too, because like a lot of my high elves, I was able to kind of know what was going on from my side a lot better than the first time, which was
Yeah.
good. Where stuff was weird was kind of the new stuff that we brought. I brought my elven prince on Moondragon, and it had
Mhm.
a lot of stuff going on that was a substantial amount of reference,
Yeah.
but it was cool. Um, we did not get to play the entire match just due to basically the time we started, and the scenario we
Mhm.
were playing was irregular, which was interesting. What did we get? 3 full turns worth, and then we called it, and it was a very close game.
Mhm.
In the kill stuff, make things run away, points keeping of a regular old world game. I won, but it was more of a skirmish that then everybody was like, all right, that's enough.
Yeah.
We'll revisit this perhaps in a more appropriate battlefield.
Mhm. Yeah, that mountain pass scenario we were doing was interesting, and just kind of how tight everything felt
Yeah, so
playing the long ways.
playing it long ways, which is interesting when neither of us had any sort of really mounted units or anything very fast, and so it was even when guys are running away, it's they're not running away very fast. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was definitely interesting.
Mhm.
I don't did did you do any more hobbying besides that?
No, I haven't done anything yet. I spent the other day celebrating a 1 year anniversary with my girlfriend, so I haven't really had some hobby time since we played Sunday.
Congratulations! Look, guys, look, audience, more proof that you can do this stuff and have sexy time. Some say it's not possible, but yet there he stands. Let's close the bits box.
Closing it. Ah, boom.
All right. This week we're talking about the brand new chapter approved match play deck. Now, I will speak. I'm gonna do this in like 3 parts. First, we've got interesting things with regard to the sort of steps of setting up and playing a chapter approved battle, which I'm gonna go through. Because there's been a couple of changes there, and then we'll talk. And with that, we'll talk about a little bit about what's new, and then we'll go into what I think is the cool stuff, which is the asymmetric stuff, the twists, and at the very end, we'll talk about the match play guide or the tournament pack, which, spoiler alert, I'm not a big fan of. But
Okay, really.
yeah, if you now I know that you, Austin, you're not out on 40K because you do a podcast all about it, but you don't do a lot of playing it right now
No, I'm taking a little short break from 11th edition.
from 10th till.
Yeah, see, I've been out of it for a bit. I forgot what edition we were in.
Well, we do a lot of talking about 11th edition on this pod because people like to dream. But chapter approved battles. I've got the sheet that comes with your deck right here in front of me. There are 3 ways to play now. There are
Okay.
incursion missions, 1,000 point, strike force, 2,000 points, and asymmetric war, which we'll talk about.
Ooh.
Now, there have been changes. So you've always been able to play a 1,000 point game.
Yeah.
But in Pariah Nexus and in Leviathan, it felt pretty spread out. So now, when you play an incursion mission, you draw from the deployments of the incursion type, where it's still in the same 60 by 44 board, but the objectives are moved in a little bit. So you have different measurements on the objectives. So that kind of gets it in. And then there is also a couple of rules for mustering one's army in incursion, which is instead of a rule of 3, it's only a rule of 2. So you can't just bring 3 Vindicator tanks and say you lose. Um,
Okay.
Instead of having 6 battle line, you can have 4, right? So normally rule of 3 and the battle line's rule of 6. Now it's 2 and 4. You can also only have 1 Titanic character in an incursion mission. So you can bring like 1 Big Knight,
Mhm.
which I think is interesting. Uh, there are also changes to the way that you can perform actions in incursion. And I'm searching to find it. Reserve, deploy, actions. In incursion, if you're a battle line unit, you can advance and shoot and still do an action. So,
Okay.
as you draw your secondaries and do actions, because you have less units on the board, you're able to do some actions without shutting down the whole show, which I think is
Hmm.
smart. Um,
Yeah.
while we're on new stuff, there is a change to the action mechanic, which is I believe you can do. Oh, maybe I'm tripping. I thought you could now do an action if you had OC0. But I think that may not be the case. I thought I heard that somewhere. Oh well, I don't think actions are much different. All right, let's move on to other new stuff. So, mustering armies and everything is exactly like you remember it from Strike Force.
Hmm.
The big thing that we've got here is oh, you still have new orders exactly like it was. Okay, except when you get to the end of a turn, like let's say it's your turn, used to, you could discard a secondary for a CP. You can still do that.
Hmm.
Now, at the end of my turn, you can decide to discard a secondary, but you don't get a CP. And then when your turn comes over, you'll be able to get a fresh draw. You won't then be stuck with something that you weren't able to get, couldn't get, yada yada.
Hmm.
So that's
Yeah.
kind of neat. You get through more secondaries that way. Deploy armies changes a little bit in asymmetric. Okay, here's the big thing. Challenger cards. So this is in the begin battle. This is where you actually do the battle. And a player becomes the challenger if at the start of a battle round they have fewer VP than their opponent and the difference between their VP totals is 6 or more. So, if at the start of a battle round you're behind by 6 or more, you become the challenger and you get to draw a challenger card. There are 9
Hmm.
of them. There is only a single pull of them. So, if you draw one, then it's gone out of the pool. If you get ahead more than 6 of me later in the battle, then I draw. I got to draw out of the same stack. So
Okay.
there's no amount of like there being some easy challenge cards to get slash use that we both sort of planned for. There was a lot of discussion early on when this thing was coming out, and the challenger mechanic had been shown to us that people thought, "Ooh, I'm gonna play for a challenger." Now, a couple of problems with that logic. First of all, uh, the challenger cards have two halves. They have a zero cost stratagem that you may
Hmm.
use, and they're things like advance in charge and stuff like that. Or, uh, well, I guess I could look at a few, but they're not the greatest stratagems on the planet. Some of them are
Yeah.
like do an action, and it doesn't stop you from shooting and things like that. So everyone bear with as I dig through the twists, which are going to be a very fun thing that we're going to talk about in depth in a little bit. And two of the challenger cards I'll read you. Here's one. Challenger, pivotal movement. This is the stratagem side of it. Your movement phase. Target. One unit from your army. Effect. Until the end of the turn, your unit is eligible to shoot and declare a charge in a turn in which it advanced or fell back. There you go. Advance
Hmm.
and charge, fall back and charge for 0 CP. Now, due to these having a CP cost, I imagine things with the aura of, I forget what it's called. Basically, like the characters that make stratagems cost more. I imagine those will apply to these because these are a stratagem with a target of a unit. Therefore, something like Cypher in my army that does this would make this cost 1 instead of 0.
Yeah.
So you can do
Sounds right.
that. So you can do that. Or you can do the Challenger mission. In this case, it's attrition. Any battle round. Win, end of your turn, when it scores. One or more enemy units were destroyed this turn. Victory points, 3. Spoiler alert, they're all 3. So when people were initially discussing about like, oh, I'm going to play for the challenger cards, well, you have to be behind by 6, and then you can only get 3. Now you're also still going to have your other secondaries to do, but going down by 6 to get the chance to get an extra 3 doesn't sound like that math doesn't math to me. But that's just like my opinion, man. Um, so that's how those work. Now, there was a ton of discussion about, well, could I get a challenger card on turn 1 if I am not painted? Because if my army's not battle ready, then it stands to reason I would begin with the match 10-0.
Now, I want to stop you for a second and say that sounds like definitely something someone with an unpainted army would try to finagle.
That's exactly the case. That is exactly the case. And Games Workshop, in all their wisdom, because I like the way they use in-game stick to get people to paint, have thought about this because there's not a word about the battle ready points until you go. So begin battle is part step 13 of doing this thing. Then you get step 14 in the battle. The battle ends after 5 battle rounds have been completed. Even if one player has no models remaining in their army at the start of their turn, players continue to play out their turns until the battle ends, right? We still haven't seen,
Hmm.
we have not yet seen a word about battle ready armies. Step 15, determine victor. At the end of the battle, the player with the most VP is the winner. If the players are tied, the battle is a draw. The maximum VP each player can score is 100. Each player scores 10 VP if their army is painted to a battle-ready standard. So,
Okay.
you get your
Yeah.
10 points at the end of the thing.
Ooh.
So, I like that a lot because
Yeah.
that was so silly how people were talking about, "Oh, I'm gonna not paint so I can get a challenge card at the beginning." Because some of the challenge cards are quite potent, especially with their stratagem.
Hmm.
Or they had the idea like, I'll I'll start the thing and get a challenge card, and then I'll score 5, 10, 13 on secondaries at the very beginning, which is silly.
Yeah.
Also, I don't think the challenger cards count for your secondaries. They count for do 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 do. They count for some type of VP. Challenger cards. They're their own. They are their own category. So you still can get a maximum of 40 in secondary, maximum of 50 in primary, and a maximum of 12 in challenger cards. Now, that would all add up to more than 100, except you can't get the challenger cards unless you're behind by 6, and then they only score 3. So that math do
Hmm.
math. And that is all the stuff from the setup. So we'll set that aside. And then we'll go to the thing that I'm excited about, which is asymmetric war. All right, the way this works in the mustering army works exactly like a 2,000 point game. It recommends that you play these. Excuse me, I sneezed into the microphone. Darn me.
Oh
Darn me
man.
to heck. I'm feeling a bit sniffly, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Asymmetric war, it says, is for 2,000 plus points, which I love. So we don't really have what it used to be called, the big mission, the big points number.
Onslaught.
Onslaught, that's right. We don't really have an onslaught listed by name, but go crazy for asymmetric is what they're telling us. And what we get are asymmetric deployment maps. And I love these. There's Last Stand, which has got, a couple of things. The way these battles work, attacker and defender is rolled off and chosen. And then the attacker deploys everything, I believe, and then the defender deploys everything. So it's like just big drop, big drop. I'm going to check that because it sounds like a thing that I would get backwards, doesn't it? Create battlefield,
Possibly.
declare battle formations, deploy armies, asymmetric. In asymmetric war, starting with the attacker, yes. Yeah, so the attacker deploys everything, and then the defender deploys everything. And then the attacker always goes first in an asymmetric mission, which kind of makes sense because they are the attacker, aren't they? Now,
Hmm.
the last stand in 3 corners of the board, kind of in wedges, that's the attacker's deployment zone. And then in a big circle in the middle is the defender's deployment zone. Designers note this
Okay.
deployment works best when terrain is set up in and around the defender's deployment zone to make a well fortified position, while the rest of the battlefield has relatively few pieces of terrain.
What?
Yes, yes. How much do you love that?
It's certainly interesting and thematic.
Build
You
yourself
telling
a
me?
build yourself a fort. And then there's objective markers on this too, Austin. So there's one in one of the 3 deployment zones for the attacker. There are 2 in at the edges of the defender's deployment zone, so at the edges of the circle, and then there are 2 in no man's land. One out in the 3rd corner with nothing, and one between the 2 wedges of attacker deployment zone.
Oh.
And the secondaries are still happen in the asymmetric missions. So you end up having to send some uh, gosh, what would we even call them? Some recon units out of your fortress to try to score some points and do things. It's great. It's like easy bake narrative.
Yeah.
There's Breakout, another asymmetric one. It's got the defender in the middle. Uh, and then it's like big deployment zone, little deployment zone on the narrow edges for the attacker. So again, the defender is surrounded in that case. Tip of the spear, the the deployment zone is half of it's the defender, and then the attacker has a little wedge. They start quite
Hmm.
close together. And then we've got just silly stuff. And that's your asymmetric mission. Like that's the type of stuff you're dealing with the deployments. But then there are also primary missions that are okay. So the primary missions are all the same as they used to be. They've changed some. Uh, They've changed some scoring on them to make them a little more fair. Unexploded ordnance is still here. That was our new version of Servo Skull that I love so much, where you kick the objectives around. And then we've
Hmm.
got primary asymmetric missions. So if you're playing asymmetric, you draw from this, and there are one, two, three, four, five of them. And I'll just read. Let's see here. Holdout. So this is one, and remember, you play these on whatever you can pick or you can draw, which I think drawing is so much more fun as far as the deployment and the mission. So you can play holdout on any of those deployments that I just mentioned. So this one's called holdout. Here's what happens. Second battle round onward. Win. End of the command phase or the end of your turn if it's a fifth battle round and you are going second. What happens? The player whose turn it is scores 5 VP for each marker they control, up to 15 VP per turn. So that's simple enough, right?
Yeah.
Except you go and look, and in the case of Last Stand, the attacker is on the back foot from the jump because,
Ooh.
yeah, they got to get out into no man's land to try to get on 2 points to match what you're able to do as the defender from the jump.
Oh.
Yeah. So obviously it's just stand on the points, except the defender in that particular case has got such an easy job standing on more points than you, it makes you have to go, which I
Yeah.
always like. There's a neat one called Siphon Power where the defender starts with 50 points and then the attacker has to do an action to siphon points off of that 50.
Hmm.
How fun is that?
These these are very asymmetric.
They're good, huh? Um, and they go on like that. And remember, you're still doing your secondaries while this is happening. So, your regular old, whatever, storm hostile objective is taking place. There is a new secondary, which, let me find it. It's called, Cull the Horde has been changed to a much more sensible, uh, so now, you used to, it had to be a starting strength of like 25 or something. Now it's an infantry unit starting strength of 13 plus. And that can
Okay.
include attached things. So it makes a lot more sense rather than trying to have to knock out 30 orc boys to score 5 points. That was always silly.
Hmm.
Where is it? Oh, March for Death has changed. So you know how March for Death would come out and you have to pick 3 targets that are going to be the marked targets? And
Yeah.
invariably, you would pick 3 things that are behind cover and wholly inaccessible to your opponent, right?
Of course.
No more. Now your opponent gets to pick a gamma target of their choosing, and that one is worth 2 points.
Hmm.
So, can't score the big 5 unless I kill one of the things that you pick, which are going to be impossible to get to. But then I could pick something that's easy, that's beat up on, and I could score 2 points with it, which I like because it was kind of silly how it was always so easy to just pick a, you know, backline unit that was completely hidden in a ruin and far away, especially on turn 1 and things like that. It was silly.
Yeah.
There's a new one though called Display of Might. Oh, and Attempting Target is back. That one is new, but existed before.
Hmm.
Display of Might. So, you can't have it on the first battle round, but then, second battle round onwards, win, end of your turn. And this is how you score it. There are more units from your army than your opponent's army wholly within no man's land. That's worth 4
Okay.
points to get your guys up into no man's land and have a fight, which
Hmm.
I'm always here for. I love anything that makes the battle happen, because you and I are of the same mind that 40K sometimes devolves a little too much into stand on the place and
Yeah.
stand on the place. And hey, while you're standing on the place, you can do a thing to score more points while you stand on the place. Well, display of might. You know it's coming eventually, so you better have some guys out in no man's land. And if you're out in no
Hmm.
man's land, you're probably going to get in a fight, which I like. Also, there's a tempting target. This is another new second, or well, it's a returning secondary. I think it was a thing in Ninth Edition when you had that mission deck, whatever it was called. Can't draw it on the first. Oh wait, no, never mind. When drawn, when drawn, your opponent must select one objective in no man's land to be your tempting target, and then you have to control that thing at the end of either player's turn. So you can say the tempting target is going to be this one that all my guys are on. Good luck. And again, a fight will break out, which I like.
Hmm.
That's pretty much all the secondary stuff, primary stuff, asymmetric talk. Then we get into one more thing, and that is the twist cards. Now, couple of things. The new the new tournament guide has been released, and it does not have any unexploded ordnance, no asymmetric, no 1,000 point recommendations, no. Um, Basically, it's all stand on the place or kill stuff. You know, it's purge the foe, and it's that kind of nonsense, which
Yeah.
is super obnoxious to me because it's just the most milk toast. I mean, make the argument if you want that they're the most balanced missions. I don't actually play this game for balance. I can play chess or checkers for balance. I can play video games for balance. I don't need to go into my whole diatribe about that. But most of the fun stuff is not in the you will not find it at like official RTTs and tournaments, which I think is a shame. And you will not find a single usage of these twist cards. Now the twist cards are totally optional. There are quite a few of them, and they are crazy. All right, you ready for this? So,
Hit
this
me.
is the way I would like to play, okay? Is we show up, we draw a random asymmetric, we draw a random asymmetric primary, and then we draw a twist. Here I've drawn Night Fighting. Each unit can only be the target of a ranged attack if the attacking model is within 18 inches.
That completely throws a wrench into most
Shooting.
conventional games of 40K. Yeah.
It does. It does. It totally changes the way shooting works, and it's just a whole new game. So, I mean, obviously, if you're an obnoxious gunline list or whatever, then yes, this is just a handicap for you. That's all it is. But if you're like me and you tend to bring a list that is kind of an all-arounder all the time because you like your army to look like an army, then this is just a neat thing that's happened now.
Hmm.
Um, Designer's note: like this is how you know that they're getting wild. They say this is a great twist for players who do not yet have a battlefield's worth of terrain. They're not wrong.
Yeah.
Um, Here's another twist: high octane. Each time unit
Okay.
advances, do not make an advance roll. Instead, until the end of the phase, add 6 to the move characteristics of models in that unit. So auto advance 6 for everybody on the board.
Wow.
We are moving and shaking. You ready for the craziest one?
Hit me.
Bloodlust.
Okay.
A unit is eligible to charge if it is within 18 of one or more enemy units instead of within 12. Now, golly. Okay, so I can declare a charge from 18 out, but unless I've got +1 to charge or something, I mean, it was okay. So I roll double sixes and I make a 13-inch charge, right? No, Austin.
I think I know where this is going.
No,
Yeah.
Austin. Each time you make a charge roll, roll 3d6.
Very interesting.
But hey, this doesn't change the deep strike rules, so you can still deep strike to 9, and then you get to charge with 3d6, which averages like 11 and a half or something.
Yeah.
Pandemonium. Some of them aren't aren't as cool. Lords of War is a twist card. Until the end of the battle, add 3 to the attack's characteristics of each weapon equipped by Warlord models, excluding vehicles, which I don't know who has a vehicle Warlord. I mean, I guess, I don't know. Is a Tau Crisis suit actually a vehicle?
I don't know. You could have a tank commander,
Ah,
guard,
well, there you go. But I think
or
that's neat.
or
It just, just superpower your characters and, stomping around, carrying on. Runescape is a neat one. Each time a unit makes a normal or advanced move, it can move horizontally through terrain features. So it's just like everything walks through walls,
hmm,
which is kind of cool.
yeah,
Um, I just think they're great. It's so
they
fun.
are.
It's so silly. It's so fun. I mean, things like high octane, bloodlust, point blank, night fighting, like that kind of stuff would make it feel like you're playing a whole different game.
Oh, it does.
And I think that's just wonderful because I like more ways to play with my toys. And this deck has given us all sorts of ways. It comes with objective markers. It comes with 6 cardboard objective markers. They are skulls on one side and like drippy skulls on the other side, but they're not colored. They're kind of just dark blue and gray. Kind of hard to tell
Hmm.
what side you're looking at, but they're cool. I know most people use the big neoprene things. I don't use them at my house. I use things like this, so I'm glad to have them. But that comes with your deck, and uh, I'm super excited to play it. I'm not so
Does sound.
excited to play it in like a tournament because they've just taken all the neat stuff out. But
Hmm.
I can't wait to convince some unsuspecting person to play any old random thing. I kind of want to play a 1,000 point game too, though, because like now
Yeah,
we got some maps.
I'm glad that 1,000 points is getting the support with this that it is because I feel like there's not a lot going for people who are just getting into the game with like their combat patrol and maybe some other stuff, and it feels like a lot of the times the lower points are kind of sidelined for more of the traditional competitive 2,000 point tournament style games, match play, and all that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I tell you the other thing too is nobody wants to play Combat Patrol.
Yeah,
Like that I feel. I mean, look, the Combat Patrol boxes are awesome. They're great value. They make sense. They're a great way to get your army started. They're a great way to try out different stuff to see what you like, things like that. But I'm not trying to learn a slightly slightly different type style of 40K to then just get beat in the head with the whole of 40K when I go to try to make that transition. You might as well just play smaller games of the real thing, I believe.
yeah,
Just because it's freaking complicated, and I don't want to try to learn it twice in some sort of way. Does that make sense?
yeah. Oh, it totally does.
I feel the same way about Age of Sigmar and their little game. I forget what it's called, Spearhead. Uh,
Yeah, that was the same concept, really.
Yeah, it's the same concept, and I understand Spearhead is actually better, and people do play it, but uh, no, I think this is the way with 40K. And again, look, if you came here for how to squeeze all the competitive juice out of the new mission deck, you came to the wrong podcast for that sort of thing. I recommend Tactical Tortoise. He goes through it in like he takes like 3 hours going through it and talking all about the sweaty minutia and telling you about all the stuff that you will never see and not talking about things like unexploded ordnance, my favorite mission in the whole thing. Doesn't even mention it. Skip right over it. For them, they throw it in the trash. That sort of thing. There will be bleep holes who throw their twist cards in the trash too because they're like, I'm never using those. Okay, that's fine. I'm gonna keep mine because I think it's gonna be fun. It's at least gonna be fun once.
Hmm.
And the other thing too is, as always, try to communicate with whoever it is you're thinking about playing with and say, hey, bring an all rounder kind of list because this is what I want to do. Would you like to do that with me? And if they say yeah, then that's what they need to do too. Because otherwise they might have a
Hmm.
bad time.
Yeah,
And that'd be bad.
Yeah, never want to do that.
Yeah, you never want to do that. Well, we've gone quite a bit. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Let me know in the comments. Let us know what you think about the new mission deck. Are you excited to play it? Did you learn anything from our talking about it? How upset are the tabletop battle app people going to be now that they have to put that battle ready check mark on the back end of the game? Because right now, in the app, you click battle ready right at the start, but now those points get applied at the end. Before it didn't matter at all. So I think that's
Yeah.
kind of funny. Uh, Austin, do you have anything in closing?
In closing, I'd just like to say I enjoy seeing a lot of interesting new ideas going on with 40K and new tools to play with, and I hope people have a lot of fun with it.
I think you're gonna have to bust out the guard, and maybe we try out the big defend the fort mission.
Possibly, like to build up the guard a little differently
Yeah,
when I
there
get back into 40K.
you've had some we've had some discussion about you possibly
Yeah.
expanding the guard and fleshing them out a little bit for yeah.
Uh, that's a second back burner because I need to buy some Saga stuff first.
Saga, the historical. What do we call that? I mean, it's a
Historical skirmish.
yeah, it's kind of a big skirmish though. We'll talk about Saga another day and how it relates to 40K, perhaps, because this is a very different type of game. Until next time, everybody, don't forget to
Stay fanatical.